Welcome to my channel. This video is for a spring wreath. Please subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell for notifications on my uploads and live streams. First, I'm making ribbon spikes, so I'm taking a ruler and just wrapping the ribbon around, so I make sure I have 12-inch long pieces, and just wrap around however many times you need for however many pieces you need, and then just cut each end. And now I'm going to wrap the ribbon in half and cut a V shape into it, so you get that nice little V shape or dovetail that some people call it. And I'm going to do this with all the ribbons that I'll be doing ribbon spikes. I'm going to do my ribbon spikes in sets of 3, and I'm going to add one grouping of 3 to each section of my wreath form. So I'm just stacking these all together, one on top of the other. You can spread them out the way you're going to want them attached and then fold them in half. They are actually easier to keep spread apart that way, but I'm going to do it this way on this wreath. And you'll notice they kind of want to go back together. That's the only reason why I don't like doing them like this, stacked on top of each other. And then just you want to twist that chenille stem a couple of times, or wreath tie. And then if you take like a paintbrush or a pencil or something and wrap your chenille stem ends around, you can make a cute little squiggly there. Now I just want to spread those out, and you see they're more difficult to spread out when you stack them on top of each other. And then you want to take your fingers or the paintbrush and just make those ribbons kind of curl around the wreath. It'll give it a nice look. After attaching all 6 groupings, I'm going to then attach my sign, and I added these cable tie mounts, and I used a little E6000 glue to make sure that they're nice and secure. So you just have to take your chenille stem and run it through there, and I go ahead and give it a twist on one on the top and one on the bottom. And these make it so much easier to attach your sign. So I'm attaching it right there in the middle, and I'm trying to find a spot between the mesh. I don't go through the mesh. I don't run that chenille stem through the mesh. I run it into a hole. So I find a hole, and that's a nice little view there of going through or between the mesh. And make sure that your chenille stems are actually wrapping around part of the wreath form. You want a wire in between so it's actually attaching to something. You want to pull it snug, not too tight. Give it a couple of good twists and make sure it's where you want it, and then go back and finish it off and wrap it around your wreath form. You don't want those chenille stem ends to be sticking out and scratch your door. Now after you attach your sign, you want to kind of mess with your mesh and pull it out a little bit. Don't pull it out too much or you'll hide your sign too much, and then you can pull out your ribbon spikes as well if you made them, and just fluff them all up and make sure everything looks nice. Now we're going to start with my first bow, and I'm going 12 inches, 12-inch tail, 12-inch loop. After I make my first loop, I twist the ribbon, measure out my next 12 inches, and I put the next loop on the opposite side. So you always have a loop on one side, on your left side, and one on your right side. And I'm just doing 2 loops and 2 tails there. Just going to cut that off at 12 inches, and I've got that clip right there in the center to hold it in place. Now for the pink ribbon, and I'm just measuring out how much I have before I start my bow. So I just want to know where I'm at and how much I have to work with. So I'm going to do a 12-inch tail, pinch that, make my first loop, measure that out at 10 inches, twist that ribbon, measure out 10 inches, and your next loop on the opposite side, and then twist your tail. So I twist it and make it go in the same direction that the other one's going. Now I'm going to stack these two together, and I'm going to put the pink on top because those loops were a little bit shorter, so it'll stand out more on top. Now for my green, and I'm doing 12 inches for everything. Again, just form your loops, twist the ribbon, and go to the opposite side. So always go from left to right, left to right. And that's just how much I had left, so that's how much I'm doing. 2 tails and 3 loops. And if you don't have clips, you can go ahead and tie off each layer if you need to, or you can hold on to it. But only do that if you're experienced at making bows, because it is difficult. So this ribbon is actually going to be on the top. That's why I'm making these loops smaller. Just keep going back and forth. You get however many loops and however many tails you want. You don't have to do this many tails. I'm going to end up with a bow with quite a few tails. You could just do one tail if you wanted to, or if you're short on ribbon. That's another way. If you're layering the bow, just do one tail for each color or each pattern, and it'll still look beautiful. And I'm going to end up with one tail on the top. I just wanted it to look a little different there. Now I'm going to take my cable tie around the center of the bow so I can pull it really snug and get it really tight there in the center. The tighter you get it in the middle of the bow, it just makes your bow look so much better. So try to tie it off as tight as you can. If you don't have a cable tie, just go ahead and use your chenille stems or wreath ties, whatever. Just try to pull it as tight as you can. But I like to use these cable ties on these thicker ribbons because it just makes them look so much better. Now after you get it tied off in the center, you want to pull your loops apart and spread them out and fluff them up. So just stick your fingers in the loop and you can kind of fluff them up and spread them out however you want. Now I'm going to cut a V shape in all the ends of the ribbons. Then I'm going to wrap the center with a chenille stem just to hide that cable tie, and then I'll be able to attach it to the wreath with this. If it's not long enough, you can attach another cable tie just to the very back there. And I've shown that on a couple other videos. Now I'm going to finish doing the V shape on all the ends. You can see how many tails I ended up with. I ended up with quite a few tails, which I think is pretty. But again, you don't need to do that. If you're short on ribbon, you can just do one tail for each bow or each layer. And then just after you get it attached, again, same with the sign. You want to run it between the mesh, so find a spot where you can run the chenille stems through and attach it to the wreath form. Now I'm going to start on a bow for the other side, and this one's going to be smaller. It's just going to be one layer, but I'm going to make a different bow. This is going to be really unique. So I'm starting out with one size for my loops on each layer, and then I'm going to go up 2 inches for each next pair of loops. So again, you're going back and forth, but I'm making sure that on the loops that are closer to me that I'm going under the loop that was already made. Now this one is going to go on top. See, that one goes on bottom. So that way the loops are nice and spread out. And again, I went 2 inches bigger for each set of loops. Again, I'm going to take a cable tie and wrap around the center to tie that off nice and tight. These are good thick ribbons, so they're more difficult to get snug in the center. I always take my needle nose pliers and pull it as tight as I can, and then clip off that end, of course. And then I'm taking a chenille stem to wrap around the center so I can attach it to the wreath. Just give it a good twist. Now I'm going on the other side of the sign there, and I'm just going right on top of those ribbon spikes, right in the center of them. Just trying to find a spot between the mesh so I don't mess up the mesh. So it can be a little difficult to find a spot. Just be patient and move the mesh around until you find a good spot to run it through. And you can see those spikes are sticking out from beneath that bow, so you can still see them. Kind of looks like the bow has more tails going on. And here's back to the other bow. You can see that's my big bow, and then I've got the other one. I'm really pleased with the way this wreath turned out. It's real colorful and springy, and I think it's really pretty. Again, I already showed a video on how to attach the mesh and the tubing. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you have a happy spring. Don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell. Share, like, comment, and please be kind with your comments, and please be kind to others.